Yo guys, it's P coming to you with a different video than usual. We're covering tips on how to become a better fighter a la mobile. Fighting on Fortnite Mobile can seem difficult with the low FPS, ping spikes, and other droid conundrums. If you played earlier this season, you know. But it is most definitely possible. However, the difference in us and PC players is how to approach the fight. This whole video was inspired by Grimothy, who in a community post response a little while back asked how to be a more opportunistic player, believing it and aim are advantages mobile has. I believe he can't be more right. On a platform with so many uncontrollable factors, opportunities we can control become important. I tried to make these tips universal for all mobile players, whether you play on a low-end 30 FPS device or a powerhouse Red Magic 9 Pro. You can walk away from this video with something new learned about Fortnite mobile fighting. With that, secret one is Loadout. The weapons you use are the foundation of Fortnite mobile fighting, regardless of the loot pool. On Fortnite mobile, you're going to want to prioritize a spray loadout. What does this mean? Prioritize weapons with a fast fire rate and a large amount of clip ammo. A safe bet for these weapons is usually an SMG. Every season, there's one that hits both of the criteria. Chapter 5 Season 1, it was the Hyper SMG Thunderburst. This season as well, in my opinion, the Thunderburst. In Chapter 4 Season 3 and 4, it was the Combat SMG. Chapter 4 Season 2, Twin Mag, so on and so forth. SMGs like these can rack up damage quick on the initial beams and fights, helping to give you the upper hand. And they are consistent in box fighting, giving you the opportunity to sneak a lot of damage on players building up compared to just a shotgun. They can also double as another way to take walls. Many people only pickaxe when they take walls, which if done wrong can lead to easy damage for the opponent. If an enemy opens an edit while you're using an SMG, you can beam them before they reset the wall, a better trade compared to no damage. It's important to also point out spray weapons, of course, aren't limited to just SMGs. This season, the Frenzy Auto Shotgun was used for the same purpose. I'd say it was really solid, especially at the beginning of the season, but now it's kind of iffy. But it is a good example of a shotgun that you can use to spray, though I would personally right now use the Hammer Pump or Gatekeeper, but that's besides the point. Those type of shotguns aren't as common though, and there's definitely a higher chance you'll see a AR with a lot of clip ammo that you can spray. The Striker AR last season, this season, the Warforged AR, which pretty much is just a reskinned Flapjack rifle in my opinion. Both very good weapons. If you take anything from this section away, prioritize guns with a high fire rate and ammo, and you'll be prepared to fight in any season, whether it be Chapter 5 Season 2, Chapter 8 Season 9, or even Chapter 2 Season 3. Before we move on to the second secret, there's one thing I want to point out. Do not make it obvious you are a spray player. Percep, you just told us to abuse spray weapons. What? When spraying weapons, I've noticed many mobile players make it obvious they are trying a 50-50, say spraying right on a wall, completely sacrificing their right hand position on the opponent, just almost playing the fight brain dead. Don't forget what the pros usually do and what you've probably seen in a video. Set up a box fight, like usually on a right hand angle, normally, and fight like a PC player where don't sacrifice making good peaks and the fundamentals just to get that quick satisfying spray kill. As an experienced mobile player, it's not worth it. Instead, learn the fundamentals of box fighting, which I'll probably cover in a future video, but if you want to learn it fast, as I know many of you guys do, Zycoma's got a video on that. Even if you're on 30 FPS, I'd say it's still good to practice and helps you to understand how a lot of PC and console players play in Chapter 5 Season 2. Now, yap session aside, to the second tip, KYS, or know your scenario. What did you think I meant? Whether fighting in early game or mid game, it's important to know as much as possible about what's near and around you. When FPS and in-game performance is normally working against you, small things like these are what's needed to help beat those PC players. Start things off, let's look at early game. Two things stand out: knowing how opponents play your drop and where your loot, no matter what type, is. For each drop, opponents usually have a strategy. For some, like my drop, it may be to 50-50 a weapon, as I usually just land in a bush, try to fight the opponent immediately. For others, rotating into a fight with mats and loot from your off spawn. Of course, you want to beat them, but it isn't always that easy. How do you do it? Knowing the strategy is a good start. When you play, look for patterns in how enemies at your drop usually play. As said before, does the opponent go for a straight 50-50 or grab mats, guns, and fight? This is where you can begin to counter. If they try to 50-50 you, potentially play to have more materials and better loot than them, so they basically are completely countered. If they're trying to get mats and loot, do the opposite, push immediately. Doing the opposite of what your opponent wants can help push fights in your favor, but sometimes their plan may be the best. Loot is huge off spawn. Items like slurp barrels, coolers, and vending machines can help you get to full shield fast. Knowing which rock hits for 130 brick, which wood item 80 wood, or even any metal at the drop could give you an advantage. Even the chests themselves and their position matter. Some chests on the map have a 100% spawn rate. For example, at my drop, the ones in the bushes, meaning that you can guarantee loot at your drop. Maybe find a drop you enjoy that includes these chests. Knowing where chests spawn position-wise is important. If one is near those shield advantages I talked about earlier, barrels, coolers, vending machines, then maybe it may be the move. If one gives you a complete height advantage over the spot you are landing, maybe that is the move, so say you could beam the guy out of sky. So, how does this look visually? Here's an off-spawn example from this season. As you can see, I'm landing in the bush, as I know 50-50ing is usually what the other player does, and I actually get a clinger. Knowing that this can do a lot of damage and the person has at most 3 builds, since that's how much you get in the chest, I throw one and boom, that's the off spawn. Here's an example of how I KYS'd last season, including yacht. I knew that often the person would fight the yacht bot to get the vault, and this is usually when I choose to push. This is as often their guard was down and they didn't expect another player to fight them right here. As you'll see in a second, it pays off in my favor. This guy literally isn't anticipating it at all, has a wide open angle, spray the enforcer AR, and I just got in, eliminated him. He didn't think I would push him this early, so he did not pop his minis, and easy elim. Connecting the loose ends, try to find out which areas at your drop has the best loot in terms of materials, weapons, and shield, or even height advantage, and find out how your opponents play the drop. Sometimes countering may be the move, sometimes it might not. All depends on your drop. Now, how to KYS mid-game. What does this look like? Here, I like to think of things you'll want to look for and things to avoid. In most games, going for fights on edge zone is helpful and better than pushing fights in POIs. When you are edge zone, in technical thinking, your FPS is usually higher, making the fight easier in terms of understanding what's going on. The players you will fight are usually worse as well. Shh, don't tell them that, as better players can be found around POIs, especially those with medallion bosses. Think Bot. Continuing that point, especially for low and mid-end device players, try to avoid rotating near or into medallion POIs. Some of you may know this from my optimization video I recently released. The winners of those drops both have a broken item, especially the Cerberus medallion, from personal experience, not the easiest to fight, and are a solid player most of the time, landing at that spot for practice. Adding to this, your FPS may be worse as the game has a lot to process graphically in those areas. If you're on solid FPS 90 to 120, you can disregard this and probably stand a fighting chance against most dropping here. Otherwise, try to rotate around those areas rather than towards them. Extending on those off-spawn style strats, early game, know where people usually land near you. Know your opponent. As an example, last season I could rely on people dropping near the yacht. This season, near the beach house mansion on a floating rock, I don't know, and the vault nearby. Knowing this makes getting the reps in for fighting easier and allows you to push with specific strategies in these areas, a la your off spawn. Finally, for the low and mid-end players out there, guessing where players are going to rotate and camping accordingly can help secure easy elims. Don't just study your rotates, think about how others will rotate. Which loot will they go for? Places will they think is worth fighting at, etc. A good rule of thumb for where people will rotate are mid-match objectives. These include vaults, forecast tower, and in season 2, bunkers. Sitting in a bush or a cone nearby the enemy's rotates will make catching them off guard so easy, even on 60 or lower FPS. I recommend this for mid-level platinum fighting players when they hit those higher ranks. It makes ranking up easier and fights tenfold more predictable. So, knowing how to KYS has helped you set up the fight. Now it's time to finish it. Enter the third and final secret, the art of exploiting. This is how even PC pro players end fights, and one of the most important concepts to master in fighting. What is it exactly? You're probably familiar with getting in and spraying. However, I've noticed a lot of people do this incorrectly, especially among the mobile community. The first mistake, and simplest, not easiest one to work around, is making your jump in obvious. A lot of people jump in the same way. Stare behind you, jump in the wall, boom, like this. I can't even perform it right now. What's going on? There we go. That's what they do. Any player that's played ranked for a while can infer you're going to jump in. So when they see this, say I'm the ranked player. When they see that you're about to jump in, they'll just go up, maybe go out to the side, then full box you. You're just extremely counterable. So it's just usually not. There's times where it's the good method, but usually you don't want to only do it. So how do you do it differently? There's actually many ways to get in that many overlook. It's easier to show than visually than to explain, so I'll do that now through the polarized aim plus edit and practice map. This map actually has a section to practice exploiting specifically, so getting good at this mechanic can be made easy. Shout out to Uriel on mobile for showing me this map on stream. The red magic 60 ping goat, and without further ado, here are some of the exploits you can try. Another mistake many make with exploiting is believing it can only be done by pickaxing in. This usually is not the ideal option, as a player can edit on the wall and shoot you before you're even in the box. In that case, you're virtually defenseless, as the pickaxe cannot effectively trade back the opponent. So, what should you do instead? Use guns, as I just did in this example shown. When you do this, you can attack the enemy if they edit the wall, or shoot the wall to replace it and reset the fight if need be. It is also possible to exploit in boxes using the slide mechanic. This can catch your opponent off guard and doesn't require a weapon or pickaxe to get in. In my opinion, it is situational though, as I've only been able to use it once this season effectively in that example you just saw. Maybe it can be used in ways I don't know. Experiment around with it in game. Applying the techniques is how you start doing it, the most important part. Finally, many try to jump in without a clear advantage on the opponent. They'll be the same HP, say 200 as the other person, and immediately try to get in without getting first shot damage. Do not do this. It is a huge risk and basically a complete 50-50 aim duel, or worse, gives a clear advantage to players who recognize the situation and will counter with a right hand peek. Instead, try to get damage prior to the fight and aim to have at least 100 more HP than the enemy. Whether through an initial beam or a nice peek, this turns what's called the 50-50 into a 70-30, where you don't have to do as much damage as your enemy to win. It also gives the enemy less options. If they counter peek, they are at risk of dying, so they'll likely sit in a box, play more defensive, and heal. This makes jumping in way more effective as the opponent isn't moving as much, giving you time to get the wall, HP low, and get in. To sum everything in the third rule up, learn different exploits other than the stair, try to use weapons and sliding to get into the boxes, and play for an HP advantage before playing that 50-50. With that, those are 3 secrets to help improve your Fortnite mobile fighting: a spray style loadout, KYSing, and knowing how to exploit. Sensei Percept, shout out to Obi-Wan Shinobi, is back. First educational video in a while. Glad I could discipline myself to make this for you guys, up and coming mobile goats out there. With practicing these moves, you may just improve at fighting on Fortnite Mobile and be mistaken for a PC or console player here and there. If you made it this far, you are Bayer Leverkusen this season, and let me know if there's any other things you want to improve or learn on Fortnite Mobile so I can get to work on making those videos. With that being said, have fun out there, remember to KYS and P out. Full peace.